Welcome back to Unleashed with Mark Morano and TNT. Sorry, we're having some hijinks behind the scenes here. Donna Jackson, the Director of Membership Development for Project 21, is now joining the program. Welcome back, Donna, to Unleashed on TNT.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Well, thank you. I was just telling you, you're back by popular demand, and I think you take the crown, and then we can have this verified with the powers that be. But I believe you are the most frequent guest on TNT's Unleashed program. You have the most times for one single guest. So, congratulations! You'll be getting a certificate in the mail.
Thank you. It's the best award I've won so far.
All right. All right. We're talking with Donna Jackson. So, Donna, um, right now we are in the midst of a 2024 presidential election. I'd like to get your take on how you think it's going right now. Just give us your thoughts on how you think this is going to play out. Is Joe Biden going to win re-election? Is Donald Trump going to win? Are the powers that be going to allow President Donald Trump to win, or are they going to prevent him by hook or crook?
Well, let me say this. If we look at the individual that has given us the best policy, comparing the two, by far the policies of President Trump has benefited most Americans. I can say this. The Biden administration showed us how great the Trump administration policies were. So that's kudos to him in that regard. I can tell you right now, for African Americans, it was the golden era. I mean, African Americans benefited in an unprecedented way. We had the largest financial growth, the largest wealth growth, the fastest growing home ownership rates, entrepreneurs. We had a record number of entrepreneurs and individuals being able to complete their college degrees, historic funding for historically Black colleges. But I can tell you right that I will give the Biden administration's policies a kudos in that they destroyed all that in a record number, in a record rate. And that's the only accolade is if you want to destroy an entire generation of benefits, then Biden gets the award. So we'll see if people vote for prosperity or poverty, and that's going to be the choice.
All right, I wasn't planning on doing this, but since you brought up economic prosperity, I want to play you this clip. This is Jared Bernstein. You probably never heard of him, but he is the senior fellow. He's the chair of the United States Council of Economic Advisors. I never heard of this guy, but he's a top economic advisor to President Joe Biden. This could explain a lot of the economic mess we're in. Can we play the clip one of Meet Jared Bernstein? Go ahead and watch this clip, and I'd like your comment on what you think of Joe Biden's chief economic advisor, Jared Bernstein. Roll tape.
The U.S. government can't go bankrupt because we can print our own money.
It obviously begs the question, why exactly are we borrowing in a currency that we print ourselves? I'm waiting for someone to stand up and say, why do we borrow our own currency in the first place?
Like you said, they print the dollar. So why does the government even borrow?
Well, again, some of this stuff gets, some of the language that some of the language and concepts are just confusing. I mean, the government definitely prints money, and it definitely lends that money, which is why the government definitely prints money, and then it lends that money by selling bonds. Is that what they do? They sell bonds. Yeah, they sell bonds, right? Because they sell bonds and people buy the bonds and lend them the money. Yeah. So a lot of times, at least to my ear with MMT, the language and the concepts can be kind of unnecessarily confusing, but there is no question that the government prints money and then it uses that money to Yeah, I guess I can't really talk. I don't get it. I don't know what they're talking about. Like, because it's like the government clearly prints money. It does it all the time, and it clearly borrows. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having this debt and deficit conversation. So I don't think there's anything confusing there.
He doesn't get it, and there's nothing confusing. That again, he is Joe Biden's chair of the United States Council of Economic Advisors. And by the way, before you answer, he's from a musical background and he has a degree in social work. Somehow became top economic advisor. Does that explain a lot to you when you see a clip like that? He literally had no idea of the job he was appointed to.
You know, absolutely. And I'm going to say this. Now we don't have to just look at the diversity hires that this administration put together and say it's just them. It's the entire gang. So he's an equal opportunity, low achievement administrator in making his choices. So now we can at least put the DEI question to rest because this guy is so unqualified that I'm afraid that I wouldn't put him in charge of a candy store, let alone in terms of economics. So it's not surprising that all of the economic policies are failing. I mean, if you want to fail in a spectacular way, this administration is doing it.
And you were talking earlier about how minorities did a great under President Trump. CNN has been expressing bewilderment, confusion about why Donald Trump is polling at record numbers of African Americans, record numbers of Hispanic Americans for any previous Republican nominee. How do you explain it? Are the polls wrong, or because Joe Biden said it point blank, you ain't black if you support Donald Trump?
No, the polls are, I would say if the polls are wrong, it's because they're not counting the real number of African Americans that are supporting him, because it's a much larger number than you think. And listen, they have a hard time understanding that African Americans want prosperity, strong families, financial stability like every other American. We're not just voting because we see somebody that has the same color. Mediocrity comes in every color. And, it has to be about substance and not just the color of someone's skin. And if you think that that's not a factor, just look at every Black city in America. We have tons of liberal Black elite politicians running urban cities, running them to the ground economically. So the fact that they would think that we're just voting for color is a problem. But CNN is always going to have the same talking points because liberals think they own African Americans. And, for a media that thinks that we're too stupid to get an ID card, of course they wouldn't think that finances matter to us. The fact that we can't feed our families, the fact that we have to work 3 jobs for the one job we had under President Trump, that's significant. We don't have time to raise our family, to take care of our kids, to build relationships, because we now have to work 3 jobs compared to the one job we used to have under President Trump's policies, and we had money left over. We're working 3 jobs now, and we're still barely making it through the week. So CNN, they're just parroting what they're told to say, but they don't feel what real Americans are feeling. And it is not a 3% inflation rate, I can tell you that. I mean, you're seeing double digits inflation on most goods that affect African Americans. This inflation is a regressive tax on African Americans, and everyone has energy poverty. Everybody has food insecurity. Everybody is worried about their mortgage, their lights, we have record foreclosures, record evictions. under this administration's economic policies. And for some reason, they think that's a good thing.
Well, you mentioned food prices. Both Justin Trudeau of Canada and Joe Biden have blamed the greedy grocery store CEOs and companies for basically jacking up the price of food. Are you angry at supermarkets for the high cost of food, or is your anger lie elsewhere for the cause?
Okay, so, if we will believe their narrative, the Trump administration wanted to give their rich corporations all kinds of tax incentives and only wanted to enrich rich corporations. So under an administration that actually, according to them, loves the policies that they were putting forward, they weren't greedy. But now, under administration that wants socialism, that hates capitalism, that wants to drive all of these corporations out of business, somehow they think this is a better environment for us to gouge the public. Does this make sense to you at all? It would make more sense that corporations would be greedy under administration that is more favorable to them, not administration that hates them. It is the only factor that comes into play is this administration's economic policy, which is a high government growth policy, which is a overspending policy, which is a over-regulation policy, which is a inflation policy. Everything they're doing is increasing the cost of goods and services and gouging the American public. And let's not forget about all the climate change policies that are also driving up all of these goods and services and making them so expensive that air is now going to be something that is too unaffordable for average Americans. It is this administration's.
Let me ask you, the media is all up in arms that South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem shot her 14-month-old dog decades ago and is writing about it in her new book. But at the same time, Joe Biden is according to Bloomberg News, thinking of declaring a national climate emergency, which would give him 130 wartime-like executive powers by which to bypass democracy. What worries you more, Kristi Noem's dog or Joe Biden declaring a national climate emergency?
The real climate emergency is that these people hate Americans. And this administration actually hates Americans. They think that we should save the planet one poor person at a time, that we should save the planet by destroying the middle class, by destroying the purchasing power of average everyday Americans. That worries me more. And the fact that this administration thinks that they're doing a good job is hard for me to fathom. And let's not forget, they're worried about killing a dog, but they advocate for killing a baby 9 months, like to birth. They want to kill a child coming out of the womb, but then they're concerned about a puppy. Now, I love puppies. I have a dog, but if you're going to bash the head of a child when he is born alive, but then you're sympathetic to a puppy, I have a problem.
Well, along the same vein as the climate emergency, there was a study that came out in December, just a few months ago, from a peer-reviewed science journal. This is the science. You can't dispute this, and I'm not making this up. Study dissected human breath climate impact by race and gender. And it said that human breath has a net warming effect on the atmosphere. They're blaming our breathing for climate change, but it gets worse. Here's what the study found, and I want to get your opinion on this. Africans are reported to more likely warm the earth with their breath and their burps than other ethnic groups, including Asians. So Africans warm the earth more than Asians, and women warm the earth with their breath more than men. So my question is, do women have more hot air than men? And are Africans really responsible for more climate change through their breath than Asian people? This is in peer-reviewed journal. What's your reaction?
They said the quiet part out loud, and they just hate human beings. Everything that they've done has been as racist as possible. I used to think that they were just making an unintended consequence, but they're not. They've decided that they decided that Africans are disposable people and that we should get rid of it. There was an environmentalist who said that in order to save this planet, we need to get rid of 450 million Africans, which means they're setting the stage now with the narrative so that they can have mass murder in order to save the climate for who? I mean, they're sitting here advocating, forcing people out of mobility, which is going to cause starvation. That's the whole EV agenda. Forcing people out of their homes. That's the whole agenda, because they want to take away private property rights so that they can save the planet for 5 individuals to own it all. And so this is outrageous. It's so despicable, but climate change is just a facade for depopulation, because you have the NAMBIs, nothing in my backyard, and you have the bananas. They don't want to build nothing nowhere. And if they can starve people to death, that's what they're going to do. And the fact that they're okay with Black slave labor to bring the mine cobalt in the Congos, where 70% of the minerals are, tells you everything you need to know.
All right, well, back to this. There's a Rhode Island University professor named Eric Loomis, and he actually said this: the data is racist. He denounces science, statistics, technology as inherently racist. And here's his exact quote: science, statistics, technology are all inherently racist because they are developed by racists who live in a racist society, whether they identify as racist or not, unquote. So my question is, can we trust any data? Or do you agree that all data is racist?
Okay. It's hard to, everything is racist, racism everywhere. Data is data, but the interpretation, depending on whose hands it is, and mostly the climate activists, can be harmful. But, I can't say enough about these greenies, because I don't like to say that they're racist, but if they were, they wouldn't have to do a single thing differently. I mean, everything, they've invented the green Jim Crow, but I think that science, real science, not what they're using now for the climate hoax, is what we need in order to progress and have real innovation. But, they've distorted everything we see. The DEI people who see racism everywhere, that equity to them means taking away from people, not making sure they have. These people who want to deplatform the earth, depopulate the earth, because they don't want anybody to have what they have. This is problematic. And I wish that we can get back to some sanity. And I think that we, as conservatives, should take over these institutions that we've given up on because we didn't realize how radical they can be. I mean, they're not playing the same game, and we're going to have to be more aggressive in order to be able to change the trajectory of this country.
All right, we're talking with Donna Jackson, the Director of Membership Development for Project 21. We got to take a break. We'll be right back with more Donna Jackson. Stay tuned. This is Unleashed with Mark Morano.